welcome to our second video for Module 9. Yes, we started off with our lowly coffee shop napkin here, and we went quickly to a Photoshop document, quickly and mysteriously I might add. For those of you that are not totally skilled in Photoshop, don't worry. It need not be this fancy schmancy. You need not have all the effects and multiple layers. If you can use either Photoshop or Illustrator to get some various layers for rollovers, if you can define the different areas of your page, pardon me, the header, the navigational graphics, the main content areas, and delineate those graphically in any way that makes sense. It doesn't have to be this fancy, so be not afraid. But what we've done is we took that, we've taken that into Photoshop, we've sliced it up, as you will in either Photoshop or Illustrator, sliced it up, and we've made some graphics in a root folder. And I've got here in my root folder, an images folder, I've got an index page that I made in Dreamweaver, just a plain old index page. I've got a folder called workups that I've got my little scan and my layered PSD in case I need them. This ultimately would not be loaded up to the live site. It would stay on my desktop site in my work area. And the rest of my root folder, the root folder itself with the HTML pages, the images folder, and the CSS, I made an external CSS that I'll show you momentarily. Those would all get loaded up. So that's kind of, we left off with our slices, and I worked ahead a little bit and made this root folder. So let's go into Dreamweaver about now. Here's a basic index page that I started making, based on these few sliced graphics that we have. And let's take a look at what that looks like in Firefox. There it is. And as I've got this set up in such a way that it's kind of centered on my page. Arguably this one I might want to go flush left, since I've got my nice little sunburst here. And we can do that, I think, and probably should. But I can show you how we got this far. Oh yeah, and I've got some rollovers here for some of the navigational items. So let's see how we got there. I made just a few of my own little CSS rules, and I got to this place by starting out and just doing a plain HTML document, not any of the sample documents that we've worked with so far. So I started out with just a plain HTML document like this one, and I made, through the CSS styles panel, I just went to new CSS rule. I created a folder for those to be in. I created an external CSS document. I just called it 1.css, like we've done. And I created a series of, I did a body tag style, but the rest are all IDs. And the IDs are great for structural div tags that you would use just one time on each page, but you might use them on multiple pages. But it's a great way to keep things straight of what you've used on this page already. So I've got a container. That's my my big box that everything sits in. I've got a header, I've got a sidebar, and inside that sidebar I've got a little box called navs. And this was kind of what I ended up with. I'm going to right now go up into my code, and I'm going to get rid of what I've got so far, all except for my body tag. Let's see here, and it's got a preload border here that's connected with some of my navs, so I'll get rid of that as well, and I'll get rid of all these divs. Now this gets rid of the divs in my HTML, gives me just a blank blue page. Why is it blue? Well, I've got that color, that's the only thing I've got really in this body tag here. I've just got a background color selected, and where did I get that background color? I got that from my Photoshop document. From Dreamweaver I did a little eyedropper sample onto the edge, the right edge of this Photoshop document. Hopefully that'll get me pretty close. As you'll find out through experimentation, it's hard to get really spot on. You've got to really kind of do some guesswork, some educated guesswork on that. But you can get pretty close with an eyedropper tool straight here from Dreamweaver. I'll just click on that, and I could navigate to that, to that Photoshop document. There it is, and click on that right edge. And, well, that's a little bit blue-gray. It was kind of from the bottom. Let's try that again. Let's see. Actually, I'll cancel out of there and scoot this up. And scoot up my Properties Inspector. Oh, there we go. I'm getting a little shadow from my other document here. That's what's going on. So let's scoot that over. That's a little more like it. Now I'll double-click on Body. Here we go. And this was just a new tag style that I made in my CSS. Just made a new tag style for Body. And from Background, I can get my eyedropper and click on that right edge. And that's pretty good. So that's my properties for Body. Here we go. Let's see, can I see that? Here, yes, there we go. Background color, that's all I've got. Now, from Body, I can put my cursor on the page, and I've already got a style made for container. And again, I just did New, and I chose an ID. I named it Container. You know, nothing really magic about calling it Container necessarily in terms of how it functions. For me, it kind of keeps my sanity. You could call it Gunzornenblatt if you want, but I called it Container, and I put it into, at the time, a new style sheet file, and put that into the new folder in my root folder. But I've got that style sheet existing now if I want to make a new one. So here's my container. I can double click and get my properties. I've got a background image. Where did I get my background image? I got it in my root folder, in my images folder, and it's that little sunburst background. And I told it to have no repeats in this particular case. A lot of times you'll want to repeat a background. You'll want to utilize a small background. This is a great big background with a specific image in it. So I chose no repeats. And let's see, under the box, I made my container 1024 is supposed to be by 768. Back when I made this file, it was a little bit off by a couple of pixels, which is embarrassing, but it won't hurt too badly. So it's 1024 by 770. That's the size in pixels of this container box. Now, here's how I centered it. I did margins at left and right. I did top margins of 0 and top and bottom margins of 0, but left and right I did auto. And I'm kind of rethinking that. I'm thinking, you know, maybe I want to have the left margin 0 also, and then we'll just leave the right margin blank. And let's see what that does for us. I'll click OK, and of course nothing's happened because I don't have this container placed. That's where I was moments ago. You can put a cursor in here, and you can see up in the code that puts a cursor inside my body tag. And now I can go to my Insert panel and get Insert Div Tag. And I've got all these IDs to choose from. I've got 4 IDs, Container, Header, Sidebar, and Navs. As I use them, they'll disappear from this list because I can only use an ID once per page. But it's a great way to build your structural elements by making them an ID. So I'll say Container, put it at insertion point, or I could say put it after the start of the body tag, either one, because that's where my insertion point happens to be right this second. There we go. And Dreamweaver by default, of course, gives you this bit of copy in here. Content for ID container goes here. That's okay. We can get rid of that at any time. In fact, that gives me kind of a place to put my next one. So, well, let's see what we've got so far. Firefox, and I'll hit save, and I'll save my CSS. Oh yeah, and it's constraining to the left, sort of. You can see there's that teeny little matrix on the left. There's not at the top. I'll show you what I did to get that away from the top. Here under my CSS styles, under container, here's what I did. Under positioning, my container I positioned relatively. Now if it's static positioning, it's going to just sit inside the body tag. It's going to sit at the upper left. But I may want to give it some tweaking relative to where it would normally sit as a static element. relative to where it would sit in the HTML. I'm saying, okay, browser, relative to where you'd usually put this HTML element, let's move it up 10 pixels from the top. So we'll give it a -10. And let's do a -10 from the left.